Arsenal have kicked off their run of three slightly easier games with a 3-0 victory against Dinamo Zagreb. We're going to go through the goals, we're going to go through the good performances and what it means for a very, very confusing Champions League table. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. I hope you guys are well. I hope everyone enjoyed the 3-0 victory last night. It was nice to have an incident-free game, wasn't it? We've had 4 really difficult matches back to back. Newcastle, Manchester United, Spurs, Villa, all lots of emotion in those games. Cup ties, North London derbies, important games for the Premier League title race, and, the emotion of going 2-0 up against Villa and then dropping 2 points from there. It's been a lot over the last 2 weeks. So it was nice last night to watch a game that didn't feel as emotionally charged. Of course, it still had really important ramifications, and you can't afford in the Champions League, just like in the Premier League, you cannot afford to underestimate a team. All the teams in the Champions League, no matter who they are, can give you a good game. I think Zagreb have got a similar number of points as Man City have now after their result last night. So, it shows that they've not been terrible in this format. And I think it was just the right game. It was the right game for us at the right time. Even though you can't underestimate these teams, you would expect Arsenal to take on Dinamo Zagreb at home and deal with them, especially with them having quite a tumultuous season themselves. I think they're on to their 3rd manager, and Fabio Cannavaro. It was his first game, so it's going to be very difficult for him to get his ideas across. So, one we were looking to win, and one we did win without too many incidents or too many jeopardous moments. I'm going to say that's a word. I'm going to go through the goals. I want to talk about some of the standout performances, and then really talk about the Champions League format and the table and how confusing it is, and try and make some sense of that, because I think right now we're all looking at that Girona game and saying, well, can we send the under-14s out? And I was kind of hoping for that myself. Now, I've seen a lot online and read it on the UEFA website. Actually, I'm not sure we can do that. We will need to still go and get a result in our final league phase game. Whether we need to roll out every risk and every player is another question. But we will get on to that. Let's talk about the goals, because you can't start talking about this. Oh, no, let's do the lineup. That's a match review. Let's do the lineup first and just discuss that. An interesting lineup for a number of reasons. First of all, Kivior comes back into the team. The first time in a very long time. We've not seen him in ages. Raya, Timber, Kivior, Gabriel and Zinchenko make up the back line. Zinchenko in there because Miles Lewis-Skelly jarred his knee in training I think he jarred his knee in the Villa game and then couldn't finish training the day after the Villa game. So that's a real disappointment. And it's typical of this season. And just very thankful that Calafiori's on his way back, I guess, if that's just happened then. But I'm also hoping that Miles Lewis-Skelly is not injured for a long time, because he has been one of the standout positives of this season so far. I enjoyed Kivior being at right back as well, right centre back. It allowed Timber to be at right back. We didn't have to play Partey in there, and I thought the back line were fine. They weren't really tested at all, and despite a period kind of in the 35th minute, that kind of 5-minute period where we seemed intent on turning the ball over to Dinamo Zagreb, kind of in our half and around our penalty area. Despite that, I don't think they had a shot on target, and Raya had absolutely nothing to do. I mean, that period was frustrating me because we'd gone ahead so early, and then we seemed intent on giving them a route back into the match and giving those rowdy away fans an opportunity to get up and get at it, but we didn't get punished for it, showing Zagreb's lack of quality. Let's move on to the midfield. So Jorginho came in. I thought he had a really good game. I saw some criticism online that I didn't really understand. I enjoyed his balls over the top. And I enjoy that he likes to pass the ball centrally a lot. When Partey plays in that six, I think he's good. But what he does really, really well is provide an early ball out wide at pace and in the right kind of area for the player to receive it so that we can get some isolations. Jorginho plays it slightly differently. He doesn't play those passes quite as well, but he's very brave sending a forward ball, directly sort of in the width of the penalty area. He will play it forward. And I like that from him. And he also loves a little clip over the top. Rice and Ødegaard both get a goal. They've had a good game. We'll come on to that. And it's Sterling, Havertz and Martinelli up front. I'm going to speak about Havertz and Martinelli as we go through the goals, but I'll just talk about Sterling now. He is covering minutes, and that's all, isn't it? That's where we're at. He's covering minutes. He's taking minutes off of Trossard and Martinelli in a good way, I should say. Just kind of supporting the team and making sure they don't have to do full 90s every single game. Other than that, I think you have to look really, really, really hard to find positives out of any of his performances at the moment. I do. And, again, I've seen some people online going, I didn't mind Sterling in that game. And I didn't mind, he looked lively. And I think the bar we're setting for Sterling is so low, so low. He had multiple opportunities to put in a cross earlier or put in a better quality cross, and also take a shot in this game and just look bereft of confidence or quality, one of the two. I mean, they do feed each other, don't they? So, yeah, didn't like that performance. But the goals, let's get back to that. So we had a goal in the second minute from Declan Rice, as I mentioned, and this was the perfect way to start, wasn't it? And at this point, 2 minutes in, we get an early goal with quality as well. It's not like we've scored from a corner or we've just kind of bundled it home. It is a very, very good goal. And I thought, okay. Are there goals here for us? Can we get this wrapped up by half time and have a nice, comfortable second half? It didn't pan out that way, but that's what it gave me the feeling of. Rice, in his interview after the game, spoke about Arteta demanding that the midfielders get in the box more and how the midfielders can score loads more goals from driving runs into the box. And that's exactly what's happened here. I think it's quality from all three of the players that involved. Martinelli, just direct. And sometimes I think my major criticism of Gabriel Martinelli is he has this wonderful way of moving the ball from right foot to left foot. And I just think sometimes he overdoes that. That can really offset a defender, and he's trying to get a defender off balance. He's trying to catch them off guard. And I think sometimes, especially in the Premier League, he waits for the perfect kind of moment where he has kind of jinked and offset them and they're going the wrong direction, and then he can explode the other way. In this run, he does a little bit of that and then just goes. And I want to see him do that more, because I think in this game especially, he proved that is effective, even though it was against lower quality opposition. He provides a really good ball with his left foot. It's behind Havertz, though. It's an interesting one. Because we score, it's a really good ball. If we don't score, are you saying, he's not put it into the right area? I don't know, but it's quality in the sense that it finds a player. He knows where Havertz is. He finds an Arsenal player. The set from Havertz is brilliant. That technique, I say this over and over and over, and I promise I won't make this a Kai Havertz loving podcast. But he is falling away from that ball, and his technique is so good. Like I say this so often. Be really careful what you wish for when you take Kai Havertz out of this team. Be really careful what you wish for, because he might be a slightly inconsistent finisher, and he probably should have more goals than he does this year. But his goal tally is okay, and he brings so many things, like this moment of quality. Sets it for Rice, who, like I said in the interview, has been demanded by Arteta to run into the box more. That's exactly what he's doing. Gets over the ball and blasts it home. It's fantastic. It's the perfect goal. It's a brilliant way to start. It's three players who we're going to need a lot from up until May. So, it's good that they're getting involved. Kai Havertz with an assist that at that point was a goal and assist in his last two games. He obviously adds another goal. Martinelli, goal and assist in consecutive games as well. Fantastic. Really fantastic, and good to see those players contributing. It then went quite stale, didn't it? At 20 minutes in, I wrote on my notes that I do for every game, the passing quality had just dropped. We really lost our pace in the pass. and we lost our, general quality. There wasn't much going on. We weren't dominating them in the same way. I thought we really had good chances in the first 20 minutes, and after that, it started to drop off, and we were quite poor. Like I've already mentioned, we had some time where Zagreb were pressing us, and we seemed intent on giving us the ball. But the first half kind of ended with not much else going on. It was a little bit frustrating, and having seen the early goal go in, I thought we could go and get this wrapped up and get it done early. If we're 3-0 by half time and you see a second half that is dead dull, you don't mind. Whereas going 3-0 in the 91st minute, it's good. But could we have kind of managed this differently? I don't know. But ultimately, we did win, and part of that win was the Kai Havertz goal. This came on the 65th minute, and it again in my notes I wrote that this is the first moment of quality in the second half at all from either team. We were kind of in a bit of a horseshoe pattern, and it looked to me like Martinelli was just like, you know what, I'm taking this by the scruff of the neck, and that's what we need from players right now. We need, and up until May, we need players who can recognise game state, recognise when things are going flat, and go, no, we're not doing this time. We are making something happen here. I'm going to drive. I'm going to do the right thing. And he kind of takes over from the horseshoe passing that was going on, drives inside. Zagreb aren't really expecting it because our tempo has been so slow in the second half up until this point, and he whips a gorgeous ball in. Initially, I thought it was really bad defending from their left centre-back. So I thought, oh God, that has beaten him really easily and dipped over him really easily. And then when you watch it back, it's from the angle that's kind of like behind the goal but towards the corner flag. That ball is dipping. That is a fantastic cross. And immediately when I saw it from that angle, I thought, okay, that's not actually bad defending. That is a really, really good ball in. I thought he got caught under it, but he really didn't. It was just such a good ball. And Kai Havertz, fantastic movement to peel off that defender. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit more coming from that left-hand side now. We saw Trossard do a really good job against Villa in that first half. And we've seen Martinelli in this game as well last night have a really good game and create a lot from that side. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that left side might be starting to pick up. And maybe if there is one very, very tiny benefit of Bukayo Saka being out, it's that we'll start to become a more balanced team and we'll start to attack more down the left. And those players will have to step up, will have to gain confidence, and will have to start generating output. Maybe that is a very, very, very thin silver lining of Bukayo Saka being out. Yeah, it's a fantastic ball in from Martinelli, and Havertz, really good header, really strong header. He's had a couple of headed chances over the recent weeks and not done well with them. So good to see him score a header in this game. 2 goals and assist in his last 2. I've spoken about it previously, and I thought after the week he had against Manchester United and Newcastle, where he missed sitters, he missed the penalty in the shootout, of course, against Manchester United. I think that he had well over 2 or 3 XG that he'd missed. That was a rough week for him, and I thought, is this the moment that all the Chelsea fans warned us about? That moment where you're like, Kai Havertz is a good player, and then his confidence drops, and you're absolutely terrified of him again because you don't think he can score for love nor money. But he's bounced back, and he's bounced back in a big way against Villa and against Zagreb. And I think that's probably, maybe we need to give the coaching team and we need to give Arteta a little bit of credit there. Because I think if Kai Havertz is still a Chelsea player, that week floors him confidence-wise for a long, long time. And I just want to recognise that actually Kai Havertz is a confidence guy, and he had a week that would destroy most professional footballers, really knock their confidence. He's already back. Within the space of a couple of games, he is back, and he is scoring, and he's contributing. And whilst he doesn't look the happiest bloke in the world, he never has, he looks a lot more confident all of a sudden. There was a chance, I was going to speak about some of the other chances, but I'll do it now. There was a chance that he was offside in the kind of first half, and I thought the commentator quite harshly mentioned, his confidence looks poor because he took a touch, and it was offside anyway, so it didn't matter, but he took a touch and then unleashes a great finish past the keeper. Zagreb just happened to have someone get back on the line. It was a bit of a silly comment from the commentator, I thought, because if he controls that and then whips it past the keeper and scores, which he very, very nearly did, we're talking about how composed he is, and how brilliant it is that he can take that touch and set himself in that scenario rather than just lashing at it. So yeah, I thought that was a silly moment. For me, he looks not back, but in a good place. So I'm really, really happy about that. And we obviously scored in the 91st minute as well to wrap up the 3-0. Martin Ødegaard, first goal from open play in 300 odd days for Arsenal. I mean, that's not good enough. That is a longer and wider conversation than this pod is going to cover. But, he has scored in this game. Again, as Rice mentioned in his interview, midfielders driving into the box. They are both going for this cross, and it just ends up, the deflection from Trossard's cross just ends up with Ødegaard, and he has the simplest finish in the world. Looked like it meant a lot to him. It did. Looked like it meant a lot to him, and hopefully it is a confidence boosting, maybe like a weight off his back as well. I really hope that he can start upping his output, because I don't think since he's come back from his injury, his output has been anywhere near what we need. He's had games where I'm like, ooh, okay, he's back a little bit. And then he's also had games where I'm like, I can't see him. And then he's had games where he's given the ball away a lot. So he's been a real mixed bag. And the only thing I can think is earlier in the season, Declan Rice, he was obviously suffering after the Euros and had a real lethargy about his play. I just wonder if Ødegaard has a similar scenario, because we rushed him back from an injury, because we had no choice but to rush him back from an injury. Is there a case that he just needs a week, 2 weeks, just to go and get fit and healthy, and maybe that will help him kind of have that sharpness that he needs around the box, that he needs to deliver the defence splitting passes that we're used to seeing from him, and those moments of brilliance where he's turning a player inside out. I feel like he's just missing that at the moment, and hopefully this goal gives him a bit of confidence, but also hopefully we can find some time to rest him, find some time to sit him down and give him time off his legs. But that made it 3-0. Zagreb offered nothing. I don't think they had a shot on target in the game. There really wasn't too much to talk about in terms of how our defence handled them, because I don't think they offered, a real threat. We also had some other chances, and you could argue that this should have been way more than 3. The big one is the Rice header from the Wanyeri ball in. I mean, that's a very frustrating moment for me. And again, the interview that Rice had after the game, he mentioned this, that he had a similar one against Manchester United, where he's stolen a march on his defender, he's stolen a march on the centre-backs, and he's got into that spot and just completely messed the header up. Wanyeri, fantastic ball in. Just a note for him as well, by the way, came on, and you would not believe that kid's just been injured. He was tearing up and down the right wing, and yes, Sterling started this game, and he is the senior pro. I have no doubt who is first in that pecking order between the two of them right now. With Saka out injured, Wanyeri is the closest thing we've got to him. I guess as well, he'll get a bit of confidence from seeing Miles Lewis-Skelly handle himself so well. So, I'm excited for Wanyeri to be back. I think he has a lot of quality, and he can start to take the burden off some of these other guys and give us another body in the forward line as well. We've spoken about him a lot as a 10 this year when Ødegaard was out, but I don't think that's where he's going to be playing too much of his football now. He might drop in there for 20 minutes to give Ødegaard a rest or something, but I think he is going to be a right winger for the end of the season, and I'm excited about the quality he can deliver from that side of the pitch. Some other chances we had. Martinelli had a shot from the edge of the area that he kind of whipped off Ødegaard's toe. There was the Gabriel header from the corner in the 14th minute that, people say, oh, you should score them. It's very difficult to score from a header. Gabriel makes it look easy, and he's missed a couple recently where you're looking at it and going, oh, his quality should be bagging that. It's not as easy as he makes it look. So, it's a big chance, and we would hope to score that, but we didn't on this occasion. They're the goals. It was a good evening. It was not a relaxing evening, but not a highly stressful evening, which is very good. Just a quick note for Nathan Butler Oyedeji. He came on very, very late in the game. I'm not sure he got a touch, but Champions League debut, another Champions League debut this year that Arteta has handed one of the academy lads. Great for him. Fantastic to be on, and fantastic show of faith again in the academy from Arteta. We know he doesn't do this. People have criticised him that he doesn't trust the academy. He won't play youth because he has been hesitant to bring people in and bring people up. So we know he doesn't do this just to kind of give kids a chance. It's all part of the pathway and learning, and he clearly feels that Butler Oyedeji is ready to kind of come on and contribute. Hopefully we see a little bit more of him. Hopefully we get some games wrapped up and we can watch him for 5-10 minutes at the end of games, rather than kind of the 1-2 minutes of injury time he got in the end because of Ødegaard's goal and the celebrations. But fantastic for the kid, and another academy prospect getting a Champions League debut this year. Magnificent. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about Gabriel Martinelli in a little bit more detail, talk about this Champions League table, and kind of look ahead a little bit, maybe to the Wolves game this weekend. Hello everyone, I just want to interrupt this podcast very, very quickly to say a massive thank you for listening to Arsenal Unfiltered, whether you've listened to one of these match review podcasts like I'm doing today, or whether you listen to the Arsenal Roundup to catch up on all the Arsenal news, transfers, injuries, press conferences, all of that stuff. It is really, really appreciated. Another thing that's really, really appreciated, if you could go and give me a follow or leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts at. That really helps me grow Arsenal Unfiltered, helps the podcast expand, and allows me to keep bringing you Arsenal coverage 3 times a week. Thank you very much. Alright, welcome back. Let's talk Gabriel Martinelli. Now, Gabriel Martinelli is a really interesting topic on this podcast because I have said a number of times, let's not go big on the centre-forward position. Let's go big at left wing. That's where I feel like you can get the biggest upgrade. And for me, I think Kai Havertz, we've invested a lot of money in Kai Havertz, so we don't want to just sign a player who's going to make him kind of irrelevant. We want to use our money really, really smartly, and I think your better way of doing it is noting that really Gabriel Martinelli cost us £6 million. It's not a huge investment. I think we've already got our value out of him. So if he became a squad player, Trossard maybe ages out a little bit, Martinelli can become a squad player. We can spend big on the left wing so we don't feel bad. Maybe kind of having Martinelli sat down. Who would you rather have sat down? A £65 million signing because you've brought a £150 million player in their spot, or a £6 million signing because you've brought a £100 million player in their spot? I'd say the £6 million guy. And that's, Martinelli has done okay, but I don't think he's kicked on to where we want him to. And Kai Havertz brings a lot. So that's always been my opinion. Let's upgrade left wing and we'll buy someone to compete with Kai Havertz at a lower price. That's my opinion of what we should do. Hopefully that is what we do. But I just wanted to speak about Gabriel Martinelli because I think there's been a slight kind of, not revolution, but I think he's starting to show some signs, especially in the last 2 games. Feels like there's just a bit more sharpness there, a bit more going on. Let's just have a think about some of his stats. So last year, he got 10 goals and assists in the Premier League, 3 goals and assists in the Champions League. So 13 in total. He's already at 10 this season across those 2 competitions. So has he improved? Yes. Is he anywhere near the player that was the 22-23 version of this player who in the Premier League alone had 20 goals and assists, 1 assist in the FA Cup as well for Martinelli, so 21. I don't think so. I don't think he's there. I don't think he's going to match that this season, but let's say he gets to 15, 16, high teens, let's say. That, for me, will be a big, big improvement on the previous season, and enough for us to say that this is not a failed project with Martinelli. We often compare him to Bukayo Saka, and Bukayo Saka's kind of, his progression has been wild, right? Absolutely wild. And it's difficult when you see Martinelli, who came in at a similar time, who we thought they were going to go, to the same level. It's difficult to not compare him and go, oh, you're not doing what Saka's doing, so you're really not getting there. And I had worried that the 20 goals in the Premier League in 36 games in 22-23, that was, the anomaly. I had worried that. I feel like maybe it was the anomaly, but not to the extent that I thought. It wasn't as an aggressive outlier as I thought. And maybe if he can get into the high teens this year, he still has a real role to play in this squad. Like I said before, I do see him long-term becoming that second choice option on the left wing, taking the kind of Trossard role in the squad where he's regularly involved in the first 11. If he's playing well, he's good enough to start, but also can come on and be a super sub and really impact games from that kind of area of the squad. Because we've also brought an elite left winger there. This fella has, in the early part of the season, has looked really down on confidence, but I just think the last 2 games have given me hope. The way he stole in on the Aston Villa left back when he was playing out of position, remember? He was playing on the right wing at that point. He stole in, really determined, aggressive, trying to get into the box, trying to get on the end of things, and he did in that scenario. And then last night, again, I thought he looked really good, involved in the first goal, obviously directly involved in the second. Just starting to see some things, a little less kind of indecision and dawdling on the ball and kind of, taking too long to try and decide which way he's going around his player. And actually a little bit more of what we saw in that fantastic 22-23 season where he was just a bit more decisive. Now, he had Zinchenko behind him yesterday, which I thought was really interesting. I don't think you can make that link. I really don't, because Zinchenko and Martinelli combined a little bit yesterday, but it wasn't a huge amount, or it certainly didn't feel like a huge amount. They might have combined a lot in kind of inconsequential backwards and forwards passing, but it didn't feel like they were, tearing up the Dinamo Zagreb right-hand side as a pair. It felt like Martinelli was doing a really good job down there, and Zinchenko was doing, his normal role of kind of settling into the midfield and supporting build-up. So I do think that if we can get Calafiori back, because as much as Miles Lewis-Skelly has been really good, I don't think he is quite as progressive as a passer as Ricardo Calafiori. He likes to run with the ball a little bit more and drive with it, whereas I think Calafiori can do that. Of course he can, but he can also pass a little bit more, with a little bit more assuredness, I think, moving forward. And that's not a criticism of Miles Lewis-Skelly. It's just to say he's 18 and sometimes he takes an easy pass inside to allow Gabriel to do that. But of course, once you've done that, you've delayed, and Martinelli is then kind of faced up by someone. So if we can get Calafiori back, and with the form that Rice is in, I feel good about Martinelli all of a sudden. I do. I still think that's where we should go and sign, but I suddenly feel less and less worried about him. And he's just kind of coming into a little bit of form. So I'm pleased for him, and I wanted to mention that on this podcast because, it's so easy on a podcast where, you can't even see my face on this podcast. It's not a video podcast, so it's easy to criticize people and then kind of leave it there, and you should go back and recognise when they're doing a good job and having a good little period. So I wanted to say that about Martinelli. Some other notes, I thought Jorginho was decent. I thought the players that came in, Zinchenko and Kivior did okay on the ball. Like I say, they weren't tested defensively. Rice was a standout player for me again. Been really good in the last few weeks, and Havertz, a good performance from him as well. Got him a bit of rest. How important could that be? Trossard came on and Havertz was allowed to sit down. I think that happened, with 15, 20 minutes to go. So fingers crossed that helps keep him fresh for Wolves. Before we look ahead to Wolves, let's talk about this Champions League table, because this thing is crazy. I'm going to say it now. I've really, really enjoyed the Champions League format this year. I think it's just brought a little bit more, how to say it, kind of jeopardy to each game, and each game has felt like more of an event. I think back to kind of the old group stage scenario where you play teams twice, home and away, and actually for me, I loved the Champions League in its old format. I'm not saying it was bad, but you'd go away to some of these teams and go, okay, well let's just get a draw. But now that you only play these teams once, it feels like each squad is thinking, well, we want to get a victory here. We want to prove that we're better than this team, especially when we've played Inter, PSG obviously played Man City last night. There are big games. There is a kind of prestigiousness on it at this point, whereas in the old format, in the away leg, you'd probably be looking at it like, well, if we can take him at home, let's just go and beat him at home, and then it'll feel like we've got a one-up on them. this certainly feels like there's more competitiveness in individual games between the squads. The format, though, is confusing because we've never seen this before and we don't really know what anything means. So Arsenal are third place on 16 points with the best goal difference of a number of teams. Sorry, of the only other team on 16 points is Inter Milan. But then there are a number of teams below us on 15, 14, and then tons of teams on 13. And this is where the goal difference comes in. None of those teams on 13 points really have anything to rival our plus 12 goals difference. We've only conceded 2 goals from penalty and a corner, so we haven't conceded from open play in the Champions League this year. That's wild when you think about it. So what does this mean? Well, I thought this would mean we can basically kind of forget about the Girona game. Girona, let's just scroll down, find where they are. They're in 31st, so they have not kicked on from their fantastic season last season that they had in La Liga. They've lost 6 out of 7 games, lost the last 4. So they're in a difficult place. Still, like I say, you can't underestimate any team in the Champions League. Even RB Salzburg, they're a good side. They are down there in 34th. So you can't underestimate them. But actually, I was thinking, well, the goal difference swing would have to be huge for any of those teams on 13 points to kind of get to us. So actually, it's quite safe. We could even go out there and lose and still come top 8. What I didn't realise, I feel a little bit silly for not realising this, is that the top 8 are still seeded. So yes, you skip the playoff round, but where you come in the top 8 determines which teams you play in the playoff format. Now, I think that's really interesting. So there is a value. There is a value in coming first, second, third, or fourth. It's really interesting how it works. So basically, if you come 7th or 8th, you've got a chance of playing the team that came 9th or 10th in the kind of, what's the next round? Round of 16. Whereas if you come 1st or 2nd, you've only got a chance of playing the teams 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. So kind of the format suggests that the higher you come in the top 8, the more likely you are to set yourself up with a team that didn't even crack kind of the top 12 of this new league format. So that's really interesting to me, because if you look at some of the teams around that spot of 13, 14, 15, 16, now noting that we still have obviously a game week to go, so this could all change. But in that spot, you've got Dortmund, you've got Bayern, you've got Real Madrid, Juventus are kind of in and around there. So it's really interesting that actually, because of the way it's played out this year, you could end up playing one of the better teams in this competition by doing really, really well. We could have a scenario where the round of 16 is Liverpool, Real Madrid again, or Liverpool, Bayern Munich, or Barcelona, Real Madrid. So like, there's some really exciting ties building up. I don't think Arsenal can afford to game this system. We don't know what that's going to look like by the end of the league phase format. And I think we just have to go out there and try and beat Girona, try and get a top 2 spot. We obviously can't finish first, but if Barcelona lose their final game, or even draw it, and we beat Girona by enough, we can come second, which would be, it'd be nice. It'd be a good feeling, for sure, to be the second best team in this huge Champions League format group. But also just to give us the best chance, because, you'd hope Bayern and Real Madrid and Juventus are going to go get their wins and pull themselves up higher in the table, up into the 9, 10, 11 kind of spots. They actually can't qualify in the top 8. So yeah, they are going to have to go through the playoff round. Really interesting. So it's worth clarifying. There is still a lot on the line versus Girona. And I think we need to be careful of that. Let's just look ahead then, because before Girona, we have Wolves away from home in the Premier League on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Wolves obviously have a player that we would quite like. Matheus Cunha is there. He's back from his suspension after that kind of disciplinary issue post-match that he had. Is it an audition? We think Gyökeres has had an audition for us this year. Will this be the Cunha audition? I don't know. I'm not sure. I reported on the Arsenal Roundup that it feels like that transfer is looking more and more likely, with his kind of perceived falling out with Vitor Pereira, and the fact that this contract he has been offered, he hasn't signed yet. So is he pushing for this move? Are Arsenal going to be the club that capitalise on it? let's see. I think Chelsea have also been rumoured as well. So there are a number of Premier League clubs circling that scenario. So it's not guaranteed that Arsenal will get him. But Wolves, despite the fact that they've got quality, despite the fact that they've been on an upturn with Vitor Pereira and have kind of pulled themselves away a little bit from the relegation zone, although only just away from the relegation zone, it's still a team that we should be beating. There is no way that Arsenal shouldn't be looking at this game and thinking that that's 3 points. Now, look, we've said that before this year. Yeah, they are only just away on goal difference, actually, from the relegation spot. We've said that a lot this year. We've had games against Everton. We've had games against Fulham where we're thinking we should win, and we haven't managed it. So let's hope we don't have another game like that. But I think, I feel slightly reassured. We have played a lot of tough games recently, and despite the Newcastle result, we actually haven't been, since the Newcastle result, we haven't been beaten in 90 minutes in that period. We drew with Manchester United, and you could argue that we definitely should have won that game. We obviously beat Tottenham, and then some really poor defensive lapses that, if we had all of our players against Villa, wouldn't happen. So we're still playing okay. We're not getting things over the line, but we're still playing okay. And actually, if you consider that we're beating Spurs, we're drawing with Villa after, really quite poor defending, you look at a team with the quality of Wolves and you think, well, we should beat them. So I feel quite quietly, well, probably not quietly if you're saying it on a podcast, but, I feel confident that we can go and get a result. That would take us on to 47 points, I believe. Liverpool still have their game in hand on us, unfortunately, so we really need to keep pushing them, keep making sure that they stay honest. And Declan Rice said it yesterday, we need to be there or thereabouts at this stage of the season. Beating Wolves would help keep us there or thereabouts. I expect to see, a very different lineup than the one we saw against Dinamo Zagreb last night. If Lewis Skelly is fit, I'm sure he'll come back in. If not, I think that will be Calafiori. Be interesting to see what he does at centre-back now, whether he goes Timber in there and Partey at right-back, or whether he goes with Kivior in there, keep Timber at right-back. That'll be really interesting to see what he does and see how he sets that up now that we've seen both of those options deployed by Mikel Arteta. I expect that Marino, if Partey's at right-back, Marino will come back in. He's obviously been sat down, so it'd be good to have some fresh legs. And I don't think we'll see Nwaneri starting the forward line yet, but I think we will see him involved off the bench with, the classic Martinelli, Havertz, Trossard front three that we don't love because it doesn't have Bukayo Saka in, but I think that's probably our best option right now. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. A good night, a good evening, relaxing evening, like I've said a couple of times. It's not something we had to stress about, which was exactly what we needed, and hopefully it was exactly what the players needed. A little emotional and physical rest for those guys. I will be back on Sunday reviewing the Wolves game, of course, and we'll go into the following weeks and keep bringing you lots and lots of content. Like I said in the middle, if you've enjoyed this episode or any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please do consider giving me a follow wherever you get your podcasts at, or even going and finding the 5-star review button and giving me a 5-star review. It would massively help. All that's left to say is thank you very much for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.